Hello and welcome. My name is Sendra D. I am the founder of Sendor Capital Limited and Sendor TV. Welcome to the second segment of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D with guest Father Marc Vernoy. As you know, this is a two-part interview. The first aired last week, and I hope you enjoyed this continuation as well. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. Today I have with me Father Marc Vernoy. Welcome, Father Vernoy.
Thank you.
Well, I always try to surprise you, my guests, and I have, I think I've surpassed myself in trying to exceed your expectations. Father Vernoy is a Catholic priest, and he grew up in Normandy, France, a few miles away from Lisieux, home of the Little Flower. He is the eldest of 4 children to very generous and hardworking Catholic parents. From a very young age, he enjoyed attending the Mass of the retired Archpriest Thomas, who had married his parents and who baptized him. After the death of the faithful Archpriest, Father Vernoy was guided on his spiritual journey by Reverend Father Quentin Montgomery Wright, one of the very first priests to support Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. After graduating from business school in Paris in 1988 and performing military service in Germany, Father Vernoy entered seminary in Econe, Switzerland. He was ordained on June 29th, 1995, and then was assigned to India, where he served first as assistant priest and later as prior. His apostolate covered all of Asia, focusing especially on the Philippines. After his assignment in Asia, Father served as prior in principle in Languedoc-Roussillon in the south of France, then as the first SSPX District Superior for all of Africa. Father founded SSPX Priory in Florida on September 15, 2010, the Feast of Our Lady of the Seven Sorrows. In 2011, he started St. Thomas More Academy and is its principal. Father Vernoy is now an American citizen and loves his apostolate in the state where the first Mass was offered on the North American continent. So on the topic of politics and all that is happening in the world today, we have climate change. We have people who, want to, children have the right to choose their gender. We have gun rights. We have, illegal immigration. We have, and all this noise about who's right and who's wrong. First of all, let me have your thoughts about all of that, including Black Lives Matter, meaning blue lives don't matter and all lives don't matter, just Black lives matter. And we have, socialist system, and that's something I wanted to talk to you about as well. So we'll talk about that, and then we can get into, your thoughts about socialism and what the future of this country, the United States, looks like right now.
The first thing is that we don't watch the news. That's why we can
tune it out.
Be able to think, keep our judgments, free thinking, and not to be overwhelmed by feelings and emotion that are always distorting your good judgment. Feelings are not bad, but as long as you're no more the master of them, if your life is just a life of feelings, you're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You are nothing.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely terrible. And you're the slave of feelings,
absolutely.
Which is terrible.
Emotional. Yes.
Absolutely terrible. And this is the trend of this society today. Then it's the trend. We don't have any TV in our houses.
No.
It's forbidden in our congregation to have a TV.
Oh my goodness. So hear it here. Listen to this. No more TV until after the inauguration. So we've been talking about the different topics in the headlines. So you don't watch television.
No social media.
No social media. Okay, well, no social media, no television until January 2021, until after the elections. It will keep this country calm, wouldn't you say?
We can keep our peace, we can keep our vision, you see the big problem. You had all these subjects. What is the result? People are totally confused.
Yes, they are
scared.
Fear.
They are full of fear. You have the story of the coronavirus, which is a machine of fear. You will have many more people who will die of the consequences of this fear than the virus itself.
Absolutely.
It's a total disaster.
Absolutely.
It's a total disaster. How all this story has been managed and how the media were criminals.
Absolutely. They are using it to gain political points.
One day, one truth. The other day, the opposite truth.
Absolutely.
There is no more truth.
Wear a mask, don't wear a mask.
Everybody's totally confused. And now, we are living like in a totalitarian place.
Yes, we are.
Where you will have people denouncing others.
Absolutely.
He's not following the CDC guidance and the guidance of the county, and he must be punished, etc.
Right.
For what?
Absolutely.
And this is what is. It's all this atmosphere of fear, and when you have that, it's easy to manipulate people.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I didn't bring up COVID-19. It's not a topic I like, but it is what is happening now, and everything else is adding to that. So the lockdown, the forced quarantine, traveling nowadays. So So I know you will say, and I will let you say what the solution is, and what is the solution? Let me hear it from you for all of this.
The deep solution is just first to stay yourself, to enter and to keep the relation, the presence of God in your life. This is the first step. But for that, you need an atmosphere, and it's true. The first atmosphere is an atmosphere of silence to welcome this presence of God in your life, to keep the proper good judgment, and to keep the peace in your life, in your family. That's why certainly, this is a big advice I will give to people. Stay away from news, stay away from social media. It's killing your life. Your own life, your liberty, your ability to judge is taken by all these screens.
Absolutely.
Absolute.
Absolutely.
And you don't possess yourself anymore. You are possessed.
Absolutely. So, for me, how we've gotten to this point is unprecedented. Just the idea of that we have to have movements to support the police, that are sort of keeping order. And again, just like with the church, just like in Washington, politicians, there's always one person who's sort of off the focus of the primary purpose, why they're serving in that capacity. So yes, of course, there's always room for improvement. But to get the idea, I never thought I would see that in the United States. I'm from Haiti, and of course you see law and order. We used to have law and order, but the Clinton decided that we no longer needed the military, so they took it away. Yeah. They abolished it. So is this what you think can happen in the U.S. as far as keeping this country in some type of balanced system? Do you think there can be a potential for the U.S. for a certain politician to defund the police, to break away immigration officers or the immigration system, to open the borders? Because that's what happened in Europe.
I don't know if they will achieve all these things, if it will go to this extremity, because it's impossible to rule anything when you destroy the main structure of a country, which is borders and law enforcement inside. If there's no more country.
But your post says that we should open the borders.
There's no more country. It's no more a country. No border, it's no more a country.
Right.
No law enforcement, there is no more society.
No walls, he says.
It's only it will be a battle of tribes.
Absolutely. I'll go back to Haiti.
It's barbarians.
Exactly. I might as well go back to Haiti if that happens.
And this is the trend. But I think all this is to make people fear.
Right.
To put them in this atmosphere of fear. Because when they are there, it's easy to manipulate them. And we are before election. We are at a time a lot of things are changing, good way, bad way, but there is a big change. And usually people don't fear the change in itself, even if it's the change that Trump is bringing or the change that the Democrats want to bring into this country. people are very uncomfortable in instability, and they are in search for some security, some protection that nobody is offering them today. And when they are in such a state of insecurity, they are ready for anything.
Absolutely.
And easy to manipulate.
Sure.
And there is a situation today, and the media are a big means to bring this situation of total uncertainty and for people to be easily taken and manipulated.
Control.
This is extremely dangerous.
It is extremely dangerous.
Because people lose their judgment. They are ready to give up their liberty.
Their free thoughts.
Their liberty.
Absolutely. They have no idea. So you talk to us a little bit about, so is France structured under a socialist system? It's a semi-socialist country, isn't it?
It is socialist.
Okay, so I didn't want to, it's better, of course, for it to come from you. So tell us about what that is like in France at the moment. And of course, we have the movement of the Gilets jaunes in France, who wants the president, Emmanuel Macron, to leave. But I'll be cautious because you've said your brother works for President Macron. So I will be kind. But in honesty, I have to wonder why, if a president is aware, especially in France, which is one of the leading countries in this world, is having such such adversities governing. Why is he still there? Is there a system in place where they can actually?
The Gilets jaunes, it's not an easy story because they were good things. In fact, it was a combination of many people.
All cultures.
Unhappy. And you had people from extremely left, people from the far right, and all going together for one goal, just the actual system to disappear. It didn't work, it won't work like that, because you need to propose something. And they could not agree. This movement could not agree to propose anything because
they didn't have a leader.
They don't have any unity.
Yeah, they didn't have a leader from what I understand.
And it will never work that way. I don't say that they were certainly good things. It was in some ways healthy, but they didn't have the vision. Where are we going?
Sure.
They were unhappy, they were angry, they showed it, and that's all. But I'm sorry, you need to have some positive proposal and to where are we going? It's not enough to be angry.
Absolutely.
This is the problem of the whole Western world. People are angry.
Right.
People are unhappy. And we all thought, I didn't think that I could visit East Berlin when the Russians were still there. It was very interesting. I was the French uniform, and we had this special. The French troops could go in East Berlin without being checked, etc. So and just a few months after the wall fell, and everyone thought it's gone. The communists are no more. It's finished. No.
The ideology.
The wall fell the bad side. Sure. And already all these ideas were invading the Western. Now they took over. I'm sorry, the whole Western world today is deeply Marxist.
It's deeply Marxist and deeply broken in the sense that they feel so entitled.
This is why the church called Marxism intrinsically evil. It's not it's materialism. It's denial of God. This is only consequences of something deeper.
Absolutely.
What is very deep in the Marxist attitude is that they live in a constant atmosphere, culture of resentment.
Resentment, absolutely. And the thing is, Karl Marx, he was a great psychologist. Yeah. He could read, Donald Trump is the same. He can read the psychology. That's what got Donald Trump elected. But Karl Marx was able to get into the psyche of people and sort of discern what is their current lead and what is their weakness, and prey on that weakness. And from that, he launched a movement. He made offers. The priest in Aristide, I'm sure you know Jean-Bertrand Aristide, he did the same. He knew what the weakness was in the Haitian population. I don't say that there were no issues. There are always issues everywhere. But it's your volition. You never cared for the people. You only wanted power. Now you're getting to know my politics about Haiti. But my father was a military general, so I'm very passionate about law and order. The same thing happened in Haiti. Of course, look at Haiti now. 200 years of history. It's completely gone now. And so tell me a little bit more about the experience of communism / socialism. People want to separate the two. It's the same.
I think the problem is we see some expression of Marxism. You have communism, socialism, but the background is always the same.
Mm-hmm.
They work on this resentment. People cannot be happy in a Marxist influenced society because Marxism cannot work without that.
Right.
It's their motto, it's their energy, it's a very negative energy, bringing everybody down. You lose any vision, you lose any hope.
Freedom. You
cannot be happy.
Absolutely.
The reason of politics is to make people happy.
Absolutely.
There is no other reason.
Absolutely. To create an infrastructure.
You give this atmosphere of happiness and peace so that they can have a spiritual life and go to heaven.
Absolutely.
And if you miss that, you miss everything. Marxism is the opposite.
Absolutely.
Marxism will make everybody unhappy, revengeful, angry, and very irresponsible.
And it will promote the idea of survival of the fittest. Because it pits one against the other, what you were saying earlier.
And it's about in the Western world, you see all these crises here and there. You have always this background.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not responsible for all the troubles I'm in.
Right.
There is someone who must pay.
Right.
For me.
And they're not going within to find out what the thing is.
Perhaps people are responsible, but I'm sorry, we are human beings, and it was the American dream. You just have to be a fighter, a conqueror, and make your life.
Absolutely.
And now, no, they must pay. And then we must raise taxes because to pay
70% is rumored is what's in all cars in the United States. Trajectory. When I look at the crystal ball, some are saying 60% taxes, 70% taxes. And what they're doing now with the corporations, they are now controlling the corporations to make them hate the police, that they will support this group versus the police. I would like to see a country, and I have a solution, divide this country in half. Those who don't want the police go in one half, and those who want the police stay on one half. And let's see how that works out. But they have to stay on the other side for 5 years. They can't come back. So what do you say to the idea that this whole new world order is going to happen? We're going to have one big, nice government with no borders, there's no police. They're saying that social workers will replace police, and they want to get rid of the church. They do. That's definitely. The church is gone. So I think, one of the things that we want to talk about is it's not just the church, it's truly God that they're trying to get rid of. The idea of God.
No. They still need God, but they need their own creature, which is government. And they want the people to worship the government as if the government were God. That's why they need people to be in need, they need people to be unhappy so that the government is worshipped and the government will fix all their problems, etc., which will never happen. A globalist world is extremely dangerous.
Absolutely.
It's the ultimate achievement of Marxism.
It's bondage and slavery.
It's not human.
It is not human. It's not sustainable.
You see, you had Chesterton and some other writers, they wrote that the problem of Marxism is that they made Christian virtues crazy. Why? To me, it's very simple. If you try to be Christian without Christ, you get crazy because you're in a situation that's totally abstract. It's no more human. The presence of Christ with God and man is no more there. And then everything goes crazy. It's true that in Marxism you can find a lot of things that is coming from Christianism, but it's no more controlled by Christ. It's controlled by some evil powers to bring everything down. And you have this book 1984. You have one idea, one word that is used that completely turned in has the total opposite meaning. This is what we have today.
So we talked about Marxism and we talk about the lack of God in this country, and the reason why Marxism is spreading so well, so easily, around the world, is because the people, the new generation, when you say it's the newer generation, who has more a tendency to separate themselves from God. They want to separate the idea of God from their own lives, because they feel that God is a fictitious idea that the church system has imposed upon humanity to control them. But they're saying they surrender to the government. What do you say to that? So they're replacing one G with another G. So it's now government instead of God.
My idea is that it's the failure of parents, the absence of parental authority, especially the absence of fathers in the family. And then you don't have this presence of God through a paternal authority in the family. Is absent. And there is a failure in the tradition. It's just passing all the good, all the traditions, the culture, the good family habits, to pass on from generation to generation. This work was not done. It's not done for 50 years. There is a break. The families, they don't. You see, as priests, we see this problem. Before, we didn't have to prepare people to marry. It's not the business of the priest. It's the business of families.
Absolutely.
Families, they don't do their work. They don't say their kids, don't marry this one because it won't work.
Right.
They know it won't work. The kid, it doesn't have... who is knowing us the best is our parents. And they know what will work usually, and we need to listen to their advice, but they don't speak. They don't transmit what they must transmit. They don't pass on what they must pass on, and they don't act out of authority. This is what is missing. Then it's not the fault of these young people. They were not told, and there is an absence in their life and an emptiness. They don't have the means also to become really adults. Because to become an adult, you need an authority which is pushing you to find a new identity, your identity as an adult. And then they're in search for this kind of, divinity, divine authority that they kind of imagine in the government that will fix everything. No, it won't work. It will never work.
Absolutely. But I want to add one thing to it. I think the educational system too is adding to that, to their lack of understanding.
The education system is destroying the authority of families.
I said, yes.
It's challenging. You have the Common Core in America. Yeah. It's killing the authority of parents. It's challenging their authority constantly. Then when you have parents, they gave up their authority on children. What could remain of this authority is just killed by all this, what is taught in the public schools. That's why we have here our own school, which is working very well.
Oh, too! How wonderful! Absolutely wonderful.
Because we need to support it. The school is just to support the work of families.
Absolutely.
This is the only reason.
It's the family. That is the foundation of it all.
And the problem of the public school with the Common Core is to steal the authority of parents and to give it to the government.
Absolutely. And would you say also, I think I see my undergrad is in psychology, and I saw early on how, people, and I choose, for whatever ailment to try to pray through whatever I'm dealing with. but I see people reach out for pharmaceuticals for every ailment, including, depression, including, and I'm not saying that it's not good to use meditation, but sometimes you're managing a situation versus, healing the situation or the health condition. So would you say that also the pharmaceutical, the use of pharmaceuticals is in drug abuse and all of that is also creating this chaos that we see in the family? Because if you have two parents that are depressed and taking drugs,
it's not creating, it's a symptom of a sickness. You see all these addictions everywhere. And it can be alcohol, it can be any kind of drug, it can be pornography. All this is just addiction.
Absolutely.
It's a way to escape the difficulties of reality. When you're still kind of adolescent, you don't have the strength to face and accept this reality, especially your own reality, who you are, your own identity. And this is why we have so many people, they cannot reach the state of adulthood. They are still in this uncertainty of adolescence. You see, adolescence is not a state, it's a time between childhood and adulthood.
Absolutely.
Between two identities. And it's very unstable, it's unsecure, it's difficult. That's why it should be as quick as possible. And that's why also the parents are there to push their kids to take their responsibility, to be more themselves.
Self-sufficient. Correct.
To discover themselves, to face challenges, not to be
hampered.
The problem sometimes is too much protection is killing everything.
Absolutely.
And then you have people, they don't have the strength, they don't have any self-confidence, and they fear too much this reality, their own reality, then they need to escape. And you have all this range of so many addictions. Today, we never saw that in the history of humanity. All these choice of addiction just to escape this reality. Just not to be an adult, just not to be responsible. And it's back also to this Marxism. Marxism is a system that is working so well with adolescents.
Absolutely. Because they don't have the understanding to know that you have within you everything you need to create a life.
They don't have yet the sense of responsibility.
In the discernment to say that even though the government is offering me something, I would prefer to choose independence and provide for myself rather than to get my sustenance from the government, because it's not sustainable.
In fact, adolescence is a very difficult time. We were adolescents at one time, all of us, and we know what it is. It's you just try to know yourself and accept yourself as you are, to be able to love yourself. But there is like a schizophrenic attitude between two different poles, a total confidence as you have no limits. You will never die. You can do whatever. You have no definition.
Sure.
And sometimes you want to stay like that because it's pure illusion.
Absolutely.
And the other side, the same person will have total distrust in himself or herself, because they feel they are nothing, totally empty, no consistency, no nothing,
no self-worth,
no identity,
no
identity,
sure,
no strength, and it can be, and it's the origin of many depression. It's kind of two poles that are challenging. And you need to put everything together to find who you are, accept it, and love it.
Absolutely.
And do what we do everything with who you are.
Absolutely. From that deep sense of self, which is consequently connected to God, and that can guide you. Because when you're getting your validations, your sense of worth, your sense of value from out there, you will constantly be serving what's out there versus what's inside of you. And so, again, I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to stumble and fall a few times only to find out who I really was, because it's really in a challenge that you find out that defines you. And so, I want to come back to...
You find your limits, even if you push them.
Absolutely.
You know there are limits, you're limited, You can be very happy with that. The problem, the people who just want to ignore all these things, they will never be happy.
Absolutely. And I'll bring you to the topic of faith. Because, during the break, you were sharing with me about your church in your congregation. You were as we're evolving through this COVID situation, you mentioned that France was the first country, was affected before the United States. So talk to me a bit more about what we were talking about earlier. They were first affected. They closed down all nursing homes. They closed down all churches. And so, and then the United States followed. But even though you saw it happening in your home country, and then when it came to this country, your adopted country, the United States, you did not follow the trend. You stood your ground, Father, and you decided that you were not going to shut your doors. Tell me how you came about making that decision when everyone is at home, isolated, but you kept your doors open. Talk to me about that.
We could foresee everything that would happen because it was happening 2 weeks, 3 weeks before in France.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that with my parents. They are 80, both of them, this year, and they were just telling me how terrible it was, how everything was shutting down, how priests could not visit nursing home. Then we could organize ourselves early enough. One big thing I did is to write to Governor DeSantis.
Did you?
Before he wrote his executive order.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could reach him because I went through his wife and his chief of staff, and we just begged him to stay, to keep our churches open, because it was a necessity for people to keep the presence of God in their life and their spiritual life. And that's why I'm so grateful that the first essential activity
mm-hmm.
in Florida during this crisis was defined by Governor DeSantis. It's your spiritual life, your religious life.
Absolutely.
First essential activity. I think it's quite unique.
But it seemed every church still closed, though. Most churches.
Because it was the choice of some bishops, etc. But it was not imposed by the governor.
Right.
Here in Seminary County, it was a bit stricter than in many other counties because we are everywhere in Florida.
Sure. How many locations? How many churches do you have? You have 8. So your 8 locations stayed open.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said your everyday duties, you performed them regularly. Did you have to adjust?
We are just, especially in the Seminary County, it was more difficult with the restrictions, the space, etc. But we could manage. We had constant relation with the authorities, and we could remain open all the time and do all our duties. We never closed our door to people because they were in need.
Sure.
We had queues on the parking lot for confessions. Really? People were queuing from many other churches.
So were you the only Catholic church in this county open?
Yeah.
Only in Seminole County. And what about Orange County? Were you getting a lot of people from Orange County as well?
In fact, we were the only Catholic churches open during the crisis in all Florida.
My goodness. So this is the place to come. We'll give you the address and phone number. So stay tuned. And so I want to talk to you about how, when you found out about France and what was happening in France, of course, Emmanuel Macron made it a national emergency. You never did really share your views about Monsieur Macron, President Macron. Do you support him?
He's the president, and he tries to do something. I think he's part of this globalist elite of the world. He doesn't know what is really France, and I don't really think he cares about.
I don't think he cares. He just France. Never expected to be president.
He's part of this globalist elite. I don't know, they don't see a lot of things that we can see.
I think they
don't have this culture. They don't have this love. We are very concerned, you see. What is the result today of this globalist movement is the destruction of the good public powers.
They're destroying
to
Europe.
Put everything in the hands of private powers.
Yes.
And that's why you have so many companies that are taking some stance on political matters when they just should do business.
Do business. I have no idea why my bank is choosing to kneel to anyone. Donald Trump said, we kneel to no one except Almighty God.
They are business.
And I stand by that.
And if they want business, they need to welcome anyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love your honesty. So, I lived in England, part-time most of the time, but, not because I see what's happening in Europe. I'm not inspired. And so I believe that's what happened with these people who have the resources, such as George Soros. They have no God. They just want power. They want to be God. Really. That's what they want to do. They want to be God. So their agenda is putting them in Bill Gates, who wants to vaccinate. Talk to me a little bit about Mr. Gates, who chooses to...
I don't like to speak about people like that.
But no, the agenda to vaccinate the whole world for fertility and for COVID.
It's the next step after the mask. You absorb the life of people. Now we absorb faces of people. After it will be their blood. It's like a big monster.
And you're trying to decide who can have children, who cannot, because what he's done in Africa, he's trying to, what do you call it? Give them a vaccine for women in Africa to stop having children, to depopulate. Apparently the world has too many humans.
We are still speaking after the atrocities of the Nazi, the atrocities of the Soviets, the atrocities of all these the communists did in Asia. But today, the cruelty is much deeper.
Absolutely.
And it's soft.
It's soft and it's subtle.
And it's
subtle.
Much worse.
It's like the serpent in the Bible.
Because everybody is little by little accepting this cruelty.
I'm not accepting
this world without any concern, any love for human nature. It's this disincarnation. It's you speak about the good of nature, etc. But what about human beings?
Correct.
It's nice. The new Green Deal of whatever.
Yes, climate change. And the new
I'm sorry, our main concern is human beings.
Humans first.
Their happiness.
Human lives first.
And you cannot be happy if you're not free.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And this is very concerning, is that all the trend of this globalism is eating, is destroying, is annihilating the freedom of people. And you just make them slave in this even worse than slavery, because you just take their ability to judge,
absolutely,
to think,
and that's what they're doing with children.
And you put them in a constant state of feelings and emotions.
Absolutely, and in reactions.
And emotions are overtaking everything, and people they just give up their freedom.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is such a fascinating conversation, and I'm very grateful for this. But I wanted to talk about on the topic of children and the younger generation. And they're starting very young. Now, I went to the store the other day and I saw a parent forcing the child to put the mask on. He did not want to put the mask on. He says, I'm not going, he wasn't articulating, he was just fighting. Can you imagine? I mean, not the fact is no longer eat your food, but it's not put the mask on. So do you imagine what it's doing to the future of children or the human generation? It's symbolic for not being able to speak up and not able to, and I say, I've been silenced too long. I will not put this mask on unless you force me, because I'm allergic to it, because I can't breathe when I put it on. So, I may never fly again because of that, but we'll see. But talk to me about, in your congregation, how you are helping the parents with children who are trying to understand this new system of being in the world, this way of being in the world with mask and with distancing, and how are you helping people cope with that? That must be very difficult.
I think we don't have to change anything really structural in the school, because what we try to give to our children in the school is exactly that, is to be responsible citizens. And to have all the means so that they can think by themselves. They have all the intellectual tools to be free citizens. to make their life, to have their vision and follow their vision in their life, and to have all the spiritual tools to achieve a great life, a happy life. And that's why in our school there is no screen, there is no computer, there is no phone. They all, we are very consistent language, because this is the main tool of our intelligence.
Absolutely. The
grammar, they must be excellent. In this primary school, they learn Latin, Spanish, after English. Then they have 3 languages, 3 means to understand better what is grammar, logic, the tools to have a proper thinking, a proper judgment. After they learn perfectly how to write, they learn the calligraphy, and they love it. When you do a beautiful work, you're proud of it, and after they love their school. And once they leave this little primary school, they do very, very well in high school. They're always the first everywhere. It's easy for them.
Catholic school helped me get here. So I'm very grateful for what we talked about. We've talked about everything, and I just want to ask you, what are your feelings? Quick question about this Mr. Donald J. Trump. What are your feelings about him? And of course, I'm sure the Catholic Church will not want you to answer me, but you can just give me a one line. He's doing his job, or I like him a lot. What do you say of Mr. Donald Trump, President Trump?
When Mr. Trump was elected in 2016, I was not American.
So are you voting for him in 2019?
I was not American, and we were quite amazed of the things he was to propose, especially regarding our freedom to worship, and also his work for life. It was quite surprising coming from this man and his background. We were not expecting that at all, and what we are really grateful for him is that he answered his promises with what he could do, with the means he had. He did his best to answer his promises regarding this. Our first concern was we were extremely anxious with Mrs. Clinton regarding our freedom of worship.
Absolutely.
And the question of abortion.
Not just that.
And now, for a Catholic, a true Catholic who knows his religion, the teaching of our Lord Jesus Christ, not only it's absolutely impossible to vote for a Democrat, it's impossible. In conscience,
of course.
In conscience, a Catholic knowing the agenda of the Democrat today, knowing would commit at least objectively a mortal sin, then lose the presence of God in his life.
Absolutely.
And this is but on the other side, I don't see any objection for a Catholic to vote for Mr. Trump. It's quite the opposite. He's proposing things. He wants to achieve things that are perfectly in accordance with the gospel, with the message of our Lord Jesus Christ, with Christ the King. And we just have to hear and to listen to what he says, what he's proposing, and stop to have some indirect messages that are just changing the meaning of everything. This is where we are today. It's true. We're in a time. It's a choice of civilization.
Absolutely.
Or you keep the Christian civilization, and it's more than keeping. It's just bringing it back to life. Or you go for an anti-civilization.
Absolutely.
Anti-human society. Indeed. It's no more a society. It's killing the family. It's killing businesses. It's killing countries. It's killing what is human life.
But it's also destroying the innocence of children. Children who cannot actually logically think for themselves and depend on adults to guide them. They are being misguided. So I want to go on and on. This has been such a stimulating, fascinating conversation. So candid, so honest. Father Marc Vernoy in Central Florida. So, Father, again, thank you for being here. And so, well, thank you for having me here because I'm on your premises. How can someone reach you if they want to find out more, if they want to learn more about the teachings that we just spoke about?
First, there are people that they are still scared to come to church today with the virus. Then they can reach us. It's not the best means, but it's a means. They can reach us through the internet because we still give the Mass online every Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's on the website is SSPXFlorida.com. And then you have everything. It's quite easy. And it will answer any question, who we are, what we are doing, etc. I don't have to speak too much about that. It's quite
clear. And we'll have a follow-up. I can tell. Let me know what your comments are about today's message. If you have any questions, if you're wanting to reach Father Vernoy, and he will be traveling to France in October, but we plan on doing a follow-up on our Zoom. So stay tuned for more. I want to thank you, audience, for participating or being part of this experience today. And as always, I welcome your comments. Reach out to me so that you can tell me what your thoughts are about this episode or any future ideas that you may have. This is Sendra D, frankly speaking with Sendra D, hostess extraordinaire. So I try to bring you the best, and I do believe that today I exceeded my expectations. So thank you. I think we're going to segment this into two interviews. So the first part will be aired shortly, and it will be followed up by the second segment. Again, thank you for being part of this community. I love you so very much, and stay strong. If you have any family members affected by COVID, please know that I keep you in my prayers. And come to church with Father Vernoy because he seems to have a healing atmosphere that keeps COVID away. Thanks so much. See you next time. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D on Sendor TV. Please subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, and we definitely appreciate you being part of this community.